Long before the Ironclad came out, I said this would be the perfect ship for FPS action, missions, or anything on foot really. So to try that, I got a few people together to simulate just that. I'm aware of the Ironclad having issues right now. We encountered plenty and managed to find workarounds for some. And as just announced on Spectrum, some issues, including the command module separating from the Ironclad during quantum travel, is fixed internally and ready for implementation in the next patch. So while the Ironclad is not working perfectly right now, we wanted to focus on how it will perform once it's fixed, and we wanted to see how interesting the layout is. And spoiler alert, we did have plenty of fun. And the fun already started with loading cargo and other random stuff from one Ironclad to another to create a more interesting map layout, let's call it that. The view floating in between those two massive bricks just has something to it. And falling into one does not break your legs, which is good too. Then we left RCOP and the defense con area to get better performance, and at this point I would like to mention that this video was sponsored last minute by Beam Eye Tracker. I will talk about that later, but it is a camera based eye tracker, so if at any point in this video you see my view wandering around similar to my VR videos, that is me trying that feature. Meanwhile, we went to a less populated moon, so we would have gravity with an Apollo to revive us in between rounds, and some simple rules. Half of us defended the ship, while the other tried to board. Guns only, no grenades, no launchers, no use of the Ironclad turrets other than to gather intel, and no Discord communication once you die. In the first round I started defending the ship, and the first impulse was to find a good vantage point, and there are not many. The top of the lift that I said I love the view is great for having a view over your cargo, but you don't really see any of the angles that people could come from. So next best thing was the operations deck, and if you climb up there you have quite a decent view. And I was curious at this point, but I confirmed later, I can see out, see him come up the ramp there, but at least in these lighting conditions he cannot see me from down there, which is great. Well, I noticed him climbing up the ladder onto the gantry, so I decided to intercept him, run down, take the quickest route via the ladder.
For sake of cool shots, I'll come with you.
And got ambushed by other enemies that took a different route and that already managed to get up here this quick. Well, my fault. I didn't really check my corners, and I also underestimated how quickly you can get up. Then for round 2 we decided to have one sharpshooter on the top, while I was waiting in the first floor front just to see if I can catch someone off guard, which instantly felt like a bad idea because if they saw me, it's hard to get out of here. I managed to catch one player off guard who tried to get up the ramp.
Yeah. Can't aim.
But then noticed that they had also used the side entrances and were already at the back of the hangar. They were focusing on the sniper, so I tried to just run across. Which for some reason worked, but I did another mistake. Instead of just playing defensively and holding my angles, I tried to flank them. For some reason managed to surprise one, but unfortunately missed most of my shots. Tried to follow him though, just to notice that he was not alone, and so I died. My mistake, got greedy, well. Then for round 3 I was finally on the offense, and we decided to split up and take different entrances. This is where I checked the operation stack because I knew it was a good vantage point for me, but noticed that I can't see from the outside. I took the left entrance. And heard some steps to the right above me. And these gantries, we talked about that a lot when it was first shown. They are not very well protected, but these new steel beams that have been added, well, from the right angle they can catch a lot of bullets, like in this case. But he retreated, so I tried to take that opportunity and get up as fast as I could. Nova was already on there, so I tried to get to the other gantry. Halfway I heard from the shots and the lack of communication that my mate had died, but I managed to catch the defender while trying to get outside. And the fun thing here is that at this point we had won, but I didn't know because not all kills were confirmed and there was no one left in audio to tell me. So I spent another 1.5 to 2 minutes anxiously sneaking around the ship to find the other ones, which I think will be a significant part of boarding this ship. Really clearing this after your assault will be tricky, and I like that. We did play some more, but you get the gist. It's a very, very interesting ship to fight on. I think it would work both as a mission, just like the 890 jump mission, for example, or even like a tiny arena commander map, maybe with 2 Ironclads just in front of each other. We had fun, and we might try other game modes in the same setting later. If you're interested in joining any of these gameplay sessions in the future, just join my Discord and keep an eye on the announcement channel. Issues that we have encountered, specifically on foot, were no collision with the elevator floor, then the old missing collision for the command module appearing again, and sometimes people just clipping through the floor of the hangar or even floating in the hangar, so the gravity not working, and afterwards you couldn't use the ramp to get up. Our fix for that was always to just use the ladders on the outside. That kinda reset most of those issues. And afterwards we wanted to try the firepower of the whole thing by doing some basic training missions. Yeah, unfortunately after almost every quantum jump you undock from the Ironclad.
System migration procedure completed.
Sometimes that happens after a few seconds, so make sure not to start flying immediately once you get out of quantum, because you might lose your ship. More on that later. Otherwise you can just redock and then fly from there. And for the issue that the camera is centered on the command module instead of the main ship, for that also redocking helps. Yeah, but then we manned the turrets and spread some democracy to those pesky target practice pirates. For the first ones, obviously the Ironclad has more than enough firepower and gets these done in seconds. I started in the cockpit flying, and I guess that is a good time to talk about the sponsor of this video, because as you can see I'm using an eye tracker here to look around, and that is Beam Eye Tracker. They sent me a code the night before and asked if I wanted to give it a quick try, and I know that usually there are no quick tries, but I tried to install it quickly, which to my liking you can do via Steam. You need to connect a webcam, or you can even use your phone if you want to, and then you have to calibrate it once, which takes like 1, maybe 2 minutes. The cool thing is that unlike VR, you don't have to set everything up perfectly before starting your session. At this point we were already playing for an hour, then I remembered that I had that set up the night before. Just started the software, then in Star Citizen you just have to enable it for first person view or cockpit view only, and that's it. I have used a hardware based eye tracker once, and obviously, especially depending on the lighting conditions, that is more accurate. But I have to admit that just with my 15-year-old webcam, this is pretty good, and it not only tracks your eyes, that is what you're seeing right now, so slight look around, but it also realizes if you rotate your head to the left or right, and that really gives you a little more than 90-degree turns to either side. It takes a little bit getting used to it, to be aware of your head movement, but it gives you some of the advantages you have in VR, especially here where I try to keep the ship still so my mates can shoot, but I can still have a look around at the next target. Really like it.
Down here.
It's only $30. There's even a free demo on Steam. However, if you want to support the channel, the link in the description will give me a commission, but only if you get the standalone version. And from there, let's seamlessly get back into the video. We did a few of those missions, then switched positions so I could try off the guns. Most of us preferred the remote turrets because you have a better view and they also have a little more firepower. Even though I personally preferred the top manned turrets just because the look and feel of the turret is more immersive, even though I have to admit long term I would probably just use the remote ones. And we also noticed that the front ones are pretty well positioned, while the bottom one is not only very often obstructed, it also can hinder your ship from landing. It's a bit annoying. If someone is in there, you will have a hard time landing the ship. Overall, this will not really give you anything that Hammerhead would not give you, multi-crew wise, except that if you are hauling and have to defend yourself, or instead you want to attack some smaller targets and steal their cargo, this might be one of the most fun ships to do that. Unfortunately, we couldn't get past the Connie because the guns on this ship are just not big enough. And the torpedoes are currently not loaded by default, so that is something to keep an eye out for in the future. And so when we noticed that we couldn't crack that Connie, I just left my turret and wandered around the ship and just took in the atmosphere. The alarm lights are on anyways, and the constant fire hitting this ship is quite amazing. And then I went back to that top elevator position. Because weirdly enough, I think it's currently one of the best views over your ship. So bugs aside, I still think it's the coolest ship in game right now. I really like it, obviously because I spent so much time thinking about it. However, I mentioned that earlier, if you get out of Quantum, wait a couple of seconds before you start to fly. Otherwise, if your Ironclad has a good amount of momentum already when you get auto undocked, well, you can only observe your assault brig flying into the moon's surface for the next few minutes. Too fast to redock or slow down, even with the interstellar music playing. But even while falling into its own death, it still looks great. Thank you for watching. Thanks to Beam Eye Tracker for sponsoring this video. Thanks to the crew who helped me shoot this video. And as always, the biggest thanks to my Patreon and YouTube channel members.